I think the time to start thinking about college, if you have young children, is as soon as they're born. And it's not that you're really thinking about college. What you're thinking about are, how do I develop those skills that my son or daughter will need to be successful in life? And part of that success will be college admissions. If I were the parent of a young child, I would obviously get them interested in reading. I would also get them to think about choices in life. And how do you make a good choice? And talk to children about alternatives. And I use something as simplistic as buying a car. And if the family is going to go out and buy a car, let's talk about it. I think we need that time together to really explore what are our options, what's available to you, how do you think about options, and how do you make decisions? And that's reflected on how the parents make their decisions. And it can be to the simplest thing. On, you know, gee, Grandma wants us to come for Christmas, and so does Aunt Tilly. And how are we going to balance all this out so that we, you know, and really thinking and getting the child to think. I think that would be something I would really want the student to do. I would really work hard on interpersonal skills with that child. The child who knows how to look someone in the eye and talk to them, who extends their hand. The child who knows how to write a thank you note. It can be as simplistic as the child didn't feel well and the teacher went over and helped them extra, you know, or the child had been out sick and the teacher went out of their way. That it's not the parent who does it, but it's, as a parent, you teach your child to do it, so that it's a skill they own someday. It's a skill that, to teach them that every person is important. Do you talk to everyone? Do you know how to interact with each person? If you go on a baseball, your child's on a baseball team, do you teach your child to go up afterwards and say to the other person, great job today, you had a great hit? And to reach out to other people. Those are some things that we would look for as in an admissions process. The way I look at the college application process, it would be like you had a trifold in your hand. And in the trifold, the very first piece is your transcript. And that's going to be your academic record. It'll be your grades, it'll be your curriculum. And I always say that a student going to Summit never has to worry about that. We will challenge you and make sure that we develop those gifts and talents God has given you. Sometimes I think my students think we challenge them too much, but we always want to make sure that they have the good curriculum and a solid curriculum and grades. So that would be the first piece. And then their SAT and ACT scores are very important. They need to, and that also goes along with the very first piece, but SAT scores and ACTs are here to stay. Some people are saying, well, they're test optional for the colleges, and some of the colleges are going in that direction. As they have now done, the most recent studies out of the SAT Corporation College Board came out about 3 months ago. The direct correlation is not with college admissions they're finding, but the new correlation that they definitely have made is it matches with whether or not they're going to be successful in college and graduate from college. So there is now that direct line. So I think as schools begin to really study the new SAT with the writing section, we're going to see that more colleges are going to use that as a verifier. To be able to do well on the SATs, you really have to have a strong vocabulary. So when parents will say to me that have a like a 3-year-old or a 6-year-old, and they'll say, you know, Pat, what is it that we should do to help this kid for college eventually? I tell them, read, and then when you're finished with that, why don't you get them to read some more? Because in our society, we are not reading nearly enough. We are as wonderful as the internet is, we're going so quickly to information that we don't know how to really process the information the way we used to. And actually, they've done research on it, and 80% of the math portion of the test is reading. And if you really understand the reading portion, if you can really understand that question, you do not need to know nearly as much math as many people believe they do. What they need to do is understand what the question is and how to answer that question. So the second piece is the SAT, and then you have your resume of all the things that you have ever done. So that would be, the student would then say, okay, this is what I have done, the community service work they've done, any kind of projects they've done around the school, what do they love to learn about? That will be and the next piece. The concept of well-rounded, while it certainly is good for a person as an individual to be well-rounded, and I will never negate it to be a well-rounded individual, but as far as the colleges go, they are not necessarily looking for that well-rounded individual. They're looking for the person who has passion, they are committed, they are dedicated, they make a difference to an organization or a group of people. They're going to say, are they going to make the world a better place? Are they at this university, if I take this person, will they then be a great roommate? Will they be a person who will join our clubs and organizations to make one of them better? I had a student many years ago who rode with a handicapped, and their college had been given several, it was a prestigious college, had been given several horses by a donor. And they actually were culling through looking for the student who could help with this, all the horses they had gotten. It blended beautifully, and so she got accepted. Was there any way for her to know 10 years before, when she began working with the handicapped, that someday Stanford was going to be looking for these people? Absolutely not. But she was true to who she was, and therefore when the college saw that, she was more, they accepted her over other students. So you want your student to become their own person, to develop who they are, and then present themselves to a college. And as I always say, if you are who you are and you believe in your values, and a college says, you're not a good match for us, do you really want to go to that college? That would be the question I would ask you. So I think, you help your child from the youngest years explore all of their interests. If they're interested in something, get them on the internet, take them to the museums, get them interested and learn about themselves and their own passions so that they become what I call a lifelong learner. That the rest of their lives they're going, a question on college admissions is frequently asked is, what do you want to learn about? And the student who, not what happens in a classroom, but what is it that you really, that kind of kickstarts you, that makes you want to get up in the morning and work hard. They need to be able to answer that question. And that comes through years. That's not something a junior in high school will suddenly say. So if you can expose yourself to opportunities, I sometimes tell parents, help the child plan a vacation with you and have them look on that vacation. What 2 or 3 things would you like to see? Let's look in the city and see, while we're there, what are some things you would like to go to? And involving that child in that ownership of that learning experience. That will carry them into their involvement later on, and they may go off to some university as a sophomore and junior and decide, you know what, I want to study more about this. And so they'll show some initiative because in small ways early on, they're showing initiative. And the last piece is, what do you value? What's important to you? What is it that says you're a person with integrity and that you care? I think in our quick society of, texting each other and emailing each other, students who take the time to write a handwritten note. I've gone into college offices and they'll have them hanging because it's something tangible. It's so easy to click the delete button, but that's a real button. In the past, I have read for National Merit. I read for National Achievement. I have read for the President's Scholarship at some of the major universities. And what they are looking for when we read is that student who is really committed to learning, that they don't learn because they're in class and they're trying to get an A, but they're really committed to learning, and they're committed to their communities. They want people who are going to become vibrant and leaders in the future. And so that's what you're looking for as you cull through, a stack, they'll give you 200 papers and stick you in a closed room and say, start reading these and pick out 40. But you're culling for that student who just shows that spark over and above what the other students are doing. I think one of the things in life is that your self-worth does not depend on your success at this college admissions process, and that the child has learned their whole life because you've reinforced what a terrific person they are, all of their skills and what they have going. And I always tell the students, if one school doesn't take you, it's okay, because there's many schools out there. Your self-worth should not depend upon that. So we always say there are 5 first choices. There's not one first choice. There's something wonderful about a school, and there are, drawbacks to every university. So I hope that every student in the end finds a school where they're a great match. And I always say my dream is for them to whip out the cell phone, call, and say, hey, I love it here. This is the perfect place for me. That's when we've done a good job with a child going to college.